All right, let's dive right in, folks, into the world of Sunny. Talking a legacy, right? 28 books of poetry, over 100 paintings,
Wow.
and a life, well, let's just say a life that could make Kerouac look like a total homebody.
Oh, really?
Yeah, been all over the globe since like the 70s, soaking up experiences and just spitting them back out as these like incredibly vivid, often very surreal poems.
He's definitely not your typical poet. I mean, absolutely.
R-rated for sure.
R-rated, that's the word.
Yeah.
And we're going to unpack why that is. We're going to explore like what makes his work so unique, dig into some of the themes that might raise a few eyebrows, and even share a poem that really, really resonated with us.
Oh, cool.
You ready to get a little uncomfortable?
Let's do it.
Okay, so first things first. The man is a surrealist.
Just take these lines from Black Hills Stone, right? NASA could but stare. No wigwams in our telescopes. It's interference, folks. Run amok. No human life up there. No human life up there.
What's he talking about?
What is going on there?
Right. I mean, it's like being dropped like right into a David Lynch film,
It's like a fever dream.
Yeah, but like that's the beauty of surrealism, It jolts you awake, forces you to question what you're seeing, what you're hearing.
Right.
And Jetsun, he uses it masterfully, creating these layers of meaning, these almost dreamlike landscapes. Nothing is quite what it seems.
It's definitely not your typical poetry reading, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But it's also not just like random weirdness just for the sake of being weird.
Yeah.
There's like a real purpose to it, right?
Right. I mean, like, think about those lines we just read.
Yeah.
On the surface, it's just this bizarre image of NASA, looking for wigwams on the moon.
Right.
But when you dig a little deeper, there's this critique of colonialism, of imposing our own expectations on the unknown. It's like Jetson saying, hey, maybe there is life out there, but it's not going to look like what we think it should.
Totally. And he's not afraid to get controversial either.
Mm.
I mean, his poems are full of critiques of societal structures, war, politics. He's basically taking a flamethrower to anything that reeks of hypocrisy.
Yeah, he's not holding back.
No.
Marge kleptocratic, right? He throws out lines like, educate beyond bank ruptures and debt, swamped by history, corporate dishonesty.
Wow.
It's visceral. It's angry. It's a takedown of economic inequality.
Yeah.
And then you have a poem is about war, like warning, a money-grubbing capitalist's wet dream, where he calls Hiroshima an Anglo-American excursion.
Whoa.
Talks about how they had no feelings of guilt because they say the grass grew there again the following year. I mean,
Wow.
he's not pulling any punches.
He's not. There's a rawness to his language that can be like jarring, but it also makes it impossible to ignore. Like, you can't just skim over these poems. They demand your attention.
Absolutely.
And even if you don't agree with everything he's saying, you have to respect his willingness to put it all out there.
It's that authenticity that makes him so compelling, He's not trying to sugarcoat anything. He's laying bare the ugliness, the injustice, the absurdity of it all. And it's not just about like pointing fingers,
Right.
There's a deeper message there, a call for us to wake up, to question the status quo, to fight for a better world.
And it's not all doom and gloom, though, right? There's another side to Jetson, like one that's more introspective, more focused on personal growth and spirituality.
Exactly. I mean, remember, this is a guy who traveled the hippie trail to India, immersed himself in Eastern philosophy and spirituality.
Right.
You see those influences in his work, this exploration of consciousness, of mindfulness, of finding peace amidst the chaos.
Speaking of peace amidst chaos, there's this one poem that really stuck with us called Space Contact.
Oh, yeah.
It's on page 55, and it's like a meditation on awareness, on being present in the moment.
It's beautiful.
Do you want to read it? I think it would be really powerful to hear it aloud.
Yeah, you read it.
Okay, here goes. Try to be aware of the feelings, the sensations changing, cause and effect. Senses be equanimous. Be aware of the feelings. Observe the sensations. Try to be aware of the new sensations, the feelings, outside, inside the body, mind, climax, equanimous. Be aware of your breathing, current of air, frequency. Try to be aware of heartbeat, beating. Try to be aware of a point, to focus, concentration, to see mind's game, creating its incessant illusions, making an ego identity. So there's no stillness, silence, calmness, to see inside and be conscious.
Wow. It's almost like a mantra, a reminder to slow down, pay attention to those subtleties of our experience.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how he connects that to the idea of the ego, the mind's game, as he calls it.
Right. It's like he's saying that true consciousness, true peace, comes from letting go of that constant chatter in our heads that need to define ourselves, to control everything.
Yeah.
It's about surrendering to the moment, to the flow of life.
It's not about being passive or complacent, though, right?
No.
It's about being fully present, fully engaged, but without that sense of, clinging or attachment.
Right.
It's a difficult balance to strike. But Jetsun, he seems to be suggesting it's the key to true liberation.
Absolutely. So we've got the surrealism, the social commentary, the spiritual exploration, and then there's that whole other side of Jetsun, the one that really earns that R rating.
Oh, yeah, we can't forget about that. Jetsun, he definitely had a thing for women. He wasn't shy about expressing it in his poetry.
No, he wasn't. And he does it in this incredibly, evocative way, using language that's both sensual and surreal. It's like he's painting these erotic landscapes with words.
Yeah.
Celebrating the beauty and power of the feminine divine.
It's important to note, though, that while his poetry can be, quite explicit, it never feels exploitative or objectifying.
Right.
There's a genuine reverence for women, a deep respect for their agency and power.
It's like he's saying, look, I'm not afraid to celebrate female sexuality, to acknowledge the power of desire. But I'm going to do it in a way that's honest, respectful, and maybe even a little bit mystical.
Exactly. He's not trying to shy away from the complexities of human experience, but he's also not trying to reduce it to something, crude or simplistic. And that's what makes him so fascinating. He's always pushing boundaries, challenging expectations, forcing us to confront, the fullness of life in all its messy, beautiful glory.
Speaking of messy and beautiful, I think it's time we take a closer look at one of those poems that really captures that spirit.
One of the things that really strikes me about Jetsun is his willingness to be vulnerable, to really put his own desires and struggles out there on the page. It's almost like he's inviting us into his inner world, saying, hey, this is me, warts and all.
And that inner world is pretty damn expansive. We're talking about a guy who literally walked the hippie trail to India, spent years traveling the world, just soaking up all these different cultures and philosophies.
Right. And you see it reflected in his writing. There's this constant sense of exploration, of pushing beyond those boundaries, trying to understand the human experience in all its complexity, all its contradiction.
Yeah, he's trying to capture the whole damn kaleidoscope of life,
Yeah.
The joy, the pain, the ecstasy, the despair, the everything. And he's not afraid to get messy, to dive into those dark corners, to confront the things that most people would rather just avoid.
Totally. And yet there's also this incredible sense of hope that runs through his work.
Oh, yeah.
It's like he's saying, yeah, the world's a fucked up place, but there's still beauty to be found. There's still love to be had. There's still a reason to keep fighting for something better.
It's that balance, I think, that makes him so compelling. He's not just a cynic. He's not just a dreamer. He's both. Yeah. He's got this hard-earned wisdom, but he also has this childlike sense of wonder.
He's like a walking paradox, which, come to think of it, is pretty fitting for a surrealist.
Yeah.
But speaking of paradoxes, I think it's interesting how he manages to weave together these seemingly disparate threads,
Yeah.
The political, the spiritual, the erotic, into this cohesive whole.
Totally, yeah. It's like he's saying, look, these things aren't separate. They're all part of the human experience. To deny one is to deny the others.
And he's doing it with this incredible linguistic dexterity.
Oh, yeah.
He's playing with language, pushing it to its limits, creating these vivid, almost hallucinatory images that just burn themselves into your brain.
Okay, so we've talked about the surrealism, the controversy, the spirituality, the erotica, but what about the man himself? Who was Sunny Jetsun?
Well, from what I've gathered, he was a pretty enigmatic character, kept a low profile, rarely gave interviews. It's almost like he wanted his work to speak for itself.
Which is kind of refreshing, Okay. In this age of social media and self-promotion, it's rare to find an artist who's more interested in the art than the attention.
Absolutely. And I think that's part of what makes his work so powerful, There's no ego attached to it, no need to impress or explain, just pure, unadulterated creative expression.
And it's expression that still resonates today. I mean, we're talking about poems that were written decades ago, but they feel just as relevant, just as urgent now as they did then.
It's like he tapped into something timeless, something essential about the human condition, And I think that's what makes him a true visionary.
A visionary who wasn't afraid to get a little dirty, a little wild, a little dangerous.
Exactly. And that's what we need more of, right? Artists who are willing to push those boundaries, to challenge our assumptions, to make us feel something, even if it's uncomfortable.
Amen to that. Now, I know we've been throwing a lot of big ideas around, but I want to bring it back down to earth for a second. I'm curious, what was your personal reaction to Jetson's work, like the first time you encountered it?
Honestly, my first reaction was like shock. I mean, I knew his work was supposed to be provocative, but I wasn't quite prepared for the sheer intensity of it, the way he just lays everything bare. But then as I kept reading, I started to feel this strange sense of like liberation. It was like he was giving me permission to be myself, to embrace all my messy contradictions, to not be afraid of the dark stuff.
That's amazing. You know, I had a similar experience. Like, there were times when I was reading his work and I was like, whoa, this is a bit much.
Yeah.
But then I would catch myself like nodding along thinking, yeah, I feel that too.
Right. And it's not always pretty or comfortable, but it's real. And I think there's something incredibly powerful about that kind of honesty, that willingness to like look into the abyss and not flinch.
That's like he's saying, hey, this is the human experience. It's beautiful. It's tragic. It's messy. It's transcendent. And it's all ours to embrace.
And it's definitely not for everyone, but for those who are willing to take the journey, I think Jetson's work offers a profound and unforgettable experience.
So what's the takeaway here? What do we hope our listeners will get out of this deep dive?
Well, I don't want to prescribe any like specific interpretation, but I think Jetson's work invites us to question, to explore, to challenge our own assumptions about the world and about ourselves.
It's a call to wake up, to pay attention, to not be afraid, to feel deeply, to think critically, and to live authentically.
And to maybe have a little fun along the way. After all, as Jetson himself might say, life's too short to be boring.
Damn right. So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a question.
What resonated with you the most? What challenged you? What surprised you?
And most importantly, what are you going to do with that newfound awareness?
Because, as Jetson's work so brilliantly demonstrates, the journey of self-discovery is never truly over.
And neither is this deep dive. We've got one more part to go. And trust me, it's going to get even wilder.
Yeah.
Man, you know, as we've been like unpacking Jetson's world, it's hard not to be struck by his sense of adventure. Ditching the ordinary, chasing the hippie trail to India back in the 70s, I mean, that takes guts.
It really does speaks volumes about his hunger for experience. You know, for something beyond the conventional, you can almost like feel that restlessness in his poetry.
Yeah.
That urge to like break free.
Totally. And to think like he was inspired by the same spirit that fueled like the whole counterculture movement, right?
Hey.
That yearning for freedom, authenticity, a life less ordinary. It's like he took those ideals and like distilled them into his art.
Exactly. There's this raw energy in his work, this refusal to be bound by, you know, tradition or expectation. He's forging his own path, experimenting with language, with form, like almost like he's trying to shatter the mold of what poetry can be.
He was a true original, a rebel with a pen. And that originality, that's what makes his work so captivating. It's not easily categorized. It doesn't fit neatly into any box. Just like Jetson himself, right?
Right.
It's complex, contradictory, and utterly unforgettable.
And I think that's what makes him so relevant, even today. You know, in a world that often feels oversaturated with the same old, Jetson's work stands out. Like a beacon of individuality, creative audacity.
Yeah, it's a reminder that art doesn't have to be polite or predictable.
No.
It can be raw, it can be challenging, make you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
In fact, that's often where the most powerful art resides, right?
Right.
In those spaces where we're forced to confront those uncomfortable truths,
right.
To question our own assumptions, to see the world through a different lens.
It's like Jetson is holding up a mirror to our own souls, you know, showing us the beauty and the ugliness, the light and the shadow, and inviting us to embrace it all.
It's no easy feat, that's for sure. It takes courage to look deeply within ourselves, to confront our own demons, to like accept the full spectrum of our humanity.
But I think Jetson's work, it shows us that it's a journey worth taking, that in those dark corners and those messy contradictions, we can find a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us.
And maybe, just maybe, we can find a little bit of liberation along the way, right?
Yeah.
The freedom to be ourselves, to express ourselves, to live our lives on our own terms without apology.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the wild world of Sunny Jetsun, we leave you with this. Don't be afraid to explore. Don't be afraid to question. Don't be afraid to get a little uncomfortable.
Embrace the chaos, the contradictions, the messiness of it all. That's where the real beauty lies.
And who knows? You might just discover a little bit of Sunny Jetsun within yourself. Thanks for joining us on this journey. Until next time, keep diving deep.